So we were talking about what it takes to lead and be a leader, right? So especially right now when times are difficult, when the clients have a lot of questions, which is pretty normal, but especially right now, people are feeling like, are we going to be able to get the property sold quickly? Are we going to have problems during inspection? Do we have any additional things that we need to worry about, right? So when we break apart the leadership piece, in any market, people are looking for someone that's going to be pretty resolute about the way that they're going to handle the transaction, looking for somebody that's going to understand what's going on during the deal and also not get emotionally involved in that part of the process, right? So to be a leader from a transactional standpoint means to understand what's important, what's not important, and then how much to get involved in people's particular emotions on any home sale, right? So the reason that that applies is because you take the strongest people with the strongest mindsets and then you put them inside of a personal home sale, and you're gonna notice that they feel way more emotional and way more attached, even if they don't typically respond that way. So we have to be able to provide logic around that part of the process and be able to advise them on whether or not the concerns are just emotional or they're actually real. So if you want it and you're not willing to lose it, your representation should always be someone that even if they don't want to lose it, they have the ability to present and also be willing to lose it. The highs and lows of any deal. I hate to use the word deal because it makes it seem so impersonal, but it's a deal, okay? There's two parties that are trying to make a transaction happen, and there's highs and lows. In a business, in sales, inside of deals, there's highs and lows. Managing the highs and lows is one of the most difficult parts of the process, but one of the most necessary parts of the process. So what I find is that it's easy for us to know that you don't want to experience a lot of the lows, meaning if you lose a transaction, if you lose a deal, if you lose money, if you make someone mad, if you're in a slump, whatever that looks like from a sales standpoint, being low is always something that we associate with being bad. What we don't always know is that the high part is also a negative thing because it creates unrest. So we believe that every high has an equal and opposite low. And so if that's true, then when someone gets a good deal and they make a lot of money and they celebrate and get excited, we know that at some point, whether inside of that deal or at some point in the future, they're also going to experience an equal and opposite low. What that means as a salesperson is that if I get overly excited about one thing that went our way, then it would also make sense that I could potentially ruin my day or ruin the week over something that doesn't go well. What's important is that you try to figure out how to keep that between the lines as opposed to getting involved in all the highs and lows. So let's talk about emotional intelligence, IQ versus EQ, right? So intelligence versus emotional intelligence. What's important, especially as it pertains to selling things, is that what we know about making things sell isn't as important about how it makes people feel. So let me expand on that a little bit, right? So let's say we've got a buyer that feels a certain way about a property, right? One of the best parts about selling a house is that it's an emotional process. So a buyer is going to get excited about it. If you're buying other products, maybe you don't get excited. So that emotion is necessary, but it can create a lot more of a response. So as a person who's in charge of that process, it's important from an emotional intelligence standpoint to remember that people will operate a little bit differently when they're selling a home, especially if it's their home, than if they're selling something else. And if it's just a question of intelligence, like how to make the numbers work or how to put a deal together, that's one certain skill set that is necessary, but it's not the most important. The most important piece from an emotional standpoint is the awareness of what the people expect, how to deliver upon that expectation, and then making sure that people feel like they got the right deal, they got what they deserved, and they were understood and they were heard. And so those are things that from a sensory standpoint aren't as simple as numbers. It's more than numbers. All right, so I think it's really important that from a consistency standpoint, right, that you want to be able to work consistently with somebody who doesn't participate in a lot of extreme highs and lows. So I know from business maturity standpoint, there's been times in real estate where I felt like I was riding a roller coaster. Whether or not deals happened or didn't happen, right? We talked a little bit about that. The way that we process these types of things in the office is we will make a list of things. If I was a consumer, and I don't think enough businesses do this properly, but if I make a list and say, if I hired a real estate agent as a consumer, here's the things that I would expect this person to do. I would expect him to be above the drama. I would expect him to be above any petty business that might be going on inside of a transaction or infighting between agents and companies and normal things that happen, right? The way I think about it is very almost archaic. I think I want them to know that I'm standing at my desk all day, ready to answer a question and ready to help them buy or sell a home. And I think like that fundamental fact that I'm going to be here unemotionally attached to what's going on in the marketplace, but willing to give an observation about what's going on out there is what I would want. But if it's me, I want to be able to go, you know what? I am curious about what's going on in that city, and I want to know what that house is worth right now. I bet he's standing at his desk right now and can tell me exactly what's going on there. That's really quite simply what I intend to provide. And so those simple, basic fundamentals of the way that we operate here, I think really do separate us from what other people do.